Mortgage rates are still a little bit higher than I think a lot of home buyers had wished, but we've been kind of stuck in a range that I think a lot of people are getting a little more used to and starting to adapt to a little bit more. So we'll talk today about, how home buyers are actually adapting to the market. How are they changing their view? What are they looking to? What are they paying attention to the most? All these things we'll talk about with Bill coming up next. Welcome into the Smart Mortgage Show. Ben George with Bill Litton. He is a regional president at Cross Country Mortgage. I know rates are higher than we all hope. I know even you, Bill, would like to see the rates down a little bit more. I think that's kind of what we all hope. But I know we talked about in previous market updates. We're kind of in this range right now where I think a little people every month people are getting kind of more used to and more comfortable with kind of where we stand.
Yeah, and I think some of it just has to do with people getting tired of waiting. They need an extra bedroom because they had another child. They waited long enough, and they're just accepting where the market is. And there's a variety of reasons why people are adapting, but I think what's interesting is there's a lot of different ways to adapt, and it doesn't just mean that we're gonna, suck it up, pay more, and be unhappy about it. So we're seeing a lot of people using a lot of different creative ways to make it work, and certainly want to share those with you today.
Yeah, I think mortgage rates is the main thing I've highlighted, but home prices are up too. There's just kind of an elevated cost across the board. So how are people adjusting to that as they kind of make sense of this kind of new reality, so to speak, of kind of where we are in the real estate world, at least currently? We'll see where that goes in the future, but that's kind of where we are right now. So I think, Bill, kind of the first point here, I think people are, to your point, kind of looking at things a little bit differently, right? Rather than, hey, what is the price of the home with kind of rates where they are? Hey, what does that actually mortgage payment look like month to month?
I think, Ben, this is one of the most important things people can do is, the price of the house is one thing, the payment's another. Does the house fit into your budget? Is there an ability for you to make the payment? And we talk about this all the time. Make the payment and not derail your retirement plan. So you're making this payment that might be a little higher than you wanted. Maybe it eats into a little bit of your discretionary income, but you can do it. And now you're buying the house before it goes up in value more. And we're thinking about the possibility of, a refinance. There's a lot of different things that we could do to realize that, okay, this might not be the payment for the next 30 years, but you're in the house, the payment fits in your budget, and then we can go from there. So it's a step-by-step approach.
I mean, you kind of have to do that, right? I mean, I think, 10 years ago, you would have said, okay, a $300,000 home looks like this, and this is kind of what my target is. But that same amount of money today is not gonna look nearly the same as it did back then. I mean, the market's constantly changing, and you would have hoped that I could afford X amount of money, but what you have to be looking at, like we're talking about here, is that monthly payment. It's shifted so much.
It has, and kind of like everything with inflation, I remember when I was a kid that my parents were always saying, "I can't believe the price of all different kinds of goods." Right now, I see myself doing the same thing. But it's only because I was used to the old prices. And I feel like some of the younger generations out there aren't having that conversation as much because now they're finally into a career and spending their own money. And this is all they know. And it's inflationary. So in ratio and proportion to their income, it's really not that dramatically different. Now, I do believe that those numbers are slightly out of proportion right now, that incomes have not risen with recent inflation numbers. So there is a problem there. But yes, you need to look at the payments based on, if you realize that housing values over time in the United States always increase at 3 to 4%, we're not that far off. Okay, this is the reality. How are we going to make that work?
Yeah, I think a lot of people even find that they probably can't afford their own home now if they were shopping for it today in a lot of cases. So the landscape's changed, and you got to kind of shift the way you view that. What about things that are happening in your process, Bill, Cross Country Mortgages, you're helping people, get their mortgage secured. What are some of the maybe the tricks or tips or strategies that you're using today that maybe you weren't using, a handful of years ago?
Yeah, so we're definitely looking at the probability that if you buy now, you're probably going to refinance later. We're offering a no lender fee refinance to help with that. There are other savings that we have available as well when you go to refinance. So what that does is it makes a refinance less expensive, and it means that when rates start to come down, it'll make sense sooner, and the rate doesn't have to be as large of a disparity lower because the costs are going to be so low. So that's one item. We're also always offering a float down, meaning if I lock you in and rates get lower by a specific margin, they have to get lower by larger than the smallest increment lower. But if it's a reasonable decrease in rates, we can float down your interest rate to a lower interest rate before settlement. Also, sometimes we look at buying down the interest rate. In fact, we do look at that probably more often these days than we used to. And really the buy down in the interest rate, it's a balancing act based on what the payment would be without the buy down versus with the buy down and how long we feel like we're going to have the loan for, which is all the math that we're doing to see what makes the most sense with your interest rate. But, that's kind of using some of the tools that we have available to be able to help people to better afford the house that's priced higher than they hoped they would have to buy.
Yeah, that's why you want to have a good mortgage lending team on your side to kind of explain these options to you, get creative with what's available to you, and do everything they can to make it work for you. And that's what Cross Country Mortgage does. What about, you mentioned affordability? Are buyers getting more creative with affordability?
Yeah, they are definitely getting more creative with affordability. And, one of the things that we're seeing is actually people buying houses together, like with a friend or a sibling or a partner to make the numbers work. And we are seeing more of that. The other thing that I'm seeing too, and this one people laugh a lot because I always ask this question is, hey, can you get a gift from a family member? A lot of people laugh and say, yeah, right, I wish. And I know that's not something that's available to everybody, but I do see more parents giving gifts that might have been an inheritance down the road. And they're figuring, the child can use it now. And while we're alive, let's see the benefit of that gift and how that helps to, improve their quality of life and enjoy it with them. We're seeing a lot of that where the inheritance moves up in the timeline instead of being part of an estate plan when somebody passes away. They're gifting the money now to help them with the housing affordability.
Okay, it's great, more opportunities to make that payment work now, and instead of just kind of really stretching yourself out in many ways and hoping it all works out for you. I know that there's again, you mentioned income is not kind of caught up to where a lot of the inflationary levels have been. I'm guessing you're seeing more and more people push a little bit more to find side hustles and that sort of thing to increase income.
Yeah, we have seen people that are picking up, and this is a really important point, Ben, because although we've seen people pick up side hustles, which is great for your budget, if it's on the books and you want to use it to qualify, you need to have that job for 2 years concurrently with your current job. So we're all for it from a budgeting aspect. And if it makes it fit in your budget better, we love it. Continue to do it. Just know that when it comes to qualifying, just a cautionary note, it might not help you qualify.
And that's an important one. So yeah, if you have found a nice side income, great. But remember that it's not going to help you too much in the mortgage lending process for a couple of years. So something to keep in mind there as well. What about in terms of the searching for homes now, Bill? Or are people looking at the search a little differently? Are they, have they kind of rethought the way that they're going about trying to find that home?
I think people have expanded their search criteria either to an area that the home is more affordable, the prices are lower, or they go to an area where the real estate taxes are lower because real estate taxes significantly impact your monthly payment, as well as maybe deciding that a townhome is the option because you can get a similar number of beds and baths, but because it's connected, it might be a little smaller, but it's got many of the same amenities, but the purchase price is a lot lower. So we have seen people be flexible in these ways. And remember, for a lot of people, this might be a first-time home buyer. This is not your permanent forever home. It gets you into the housing market. It gets you into enjoying the appreciation of owning the home, which then you roll into the next house, which is pretty much what everybody does. And so we are seeing people be really smart and flexible in this way as well.
I like that. So what's the big takeaway, Bill, as we kind of wrap this up for buyers right now? What would you say is the biggest takeaway?
Biggest takeaway is be open to options and be open to strategic planning. Talking to a really good agent and mortgage person can certainly provide options for things that you may not have been thinking about. And by the way, with all the great realtors that I work with, and there's a lot of great lenders out there, certainly our approach is providing you with all the puzzle pieces so you can put the full picture together and make a decision whether it makes sense or not. We see a lot of times once people have all the information and they can see the full picture, it starts to make sense. They get more comfortable with it, and it helps them take the next step in a strategic way where they're not putting themselves in a bad place. In fact, they're bettering their position.
All right. That's good news if you are a home buyer. And again, the best thing you do is sit down with a good mortgage lending team and Bill's team there, Cross Country Mortgage. Happy to sit down, have a conversation with you about what options are available, some things you can do to adapt to today's market and give yourself the best chance to get in that home if that is a position that you're in. But we appreciate you watching the Smart Mortgage Show. Please check us out. All the contact information is in the show description as well. You can check it out there to make it easy for you. But remember, you can always text the word LEND to 21,000 to get on Bill's schedule today. But thanks for watching again. Please subscribe. Talk to you again soon. Take care. This program is for informational purposes only. Please consult a qualified professional before taking any action. Bill Litton is a loan advisor and regional president with Cross Country Mortgage, NMLS number 147060.